What's going on YouTube? JT's Reborn here. Welcome to another edition of Wait, this isn't a movie. I'm talking about the 1990 miniseries for Stephen King's It. Yes, It Chapter 2 comes out later this week. I did a video like 2 years ago at this point for It Chapter 1. You can check it out. There's a link in the description below for my original After the Movie on It Chapter 1. I thought it was one of the best Stephen King adaptations, and I still do think it's a really solid movie. In fact, I went to go watch the recent re-release in theaters for this in preparation for It Chapter 2, and I'm probably going to rewatch this again tomorrow before I go see the new movie, because it really helps to watch both parts back to back for what I've been told, because, you know, It Chapter 2 is coming out. And I thought I'd go ahead and discuss my thoughts on the 1990 miniseries, the thing that got me hooked on it in the first place. I don't know. See, here we go. It 1990. So this was directed by, was it Tommy Lee Wallace who did this? Yeah, he also did, like, you know, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, did the teleplay of it. It was a two-part miniseries that aired in 1990. It stars a bunch of, you know, some pretty solid child actors in there. You got some, like, other actors in there. John Ritter is probably the biggest name. And of course, how could we possibly forget the legend himself, one of the greatest actors of all time, the legendary Tim Curry as Pennywise, the dancing clown. Tim Curry is the reason this thing is memorable. Like, Tim Curry, every scene he's in, he's such a great on-screen presence. He makes every bit of his scenes count. He's freaking hilarious. He does a great job being the clown persona. Now, I love what Bill Skarsgård did, but you can't forget where Tim Curry kind of started the whole thing. It's kind of like, it reminds me a bit like 89 Batman versus, like, you know, Dark Knight. Like, I mean, they're both great Pennywises in their own way. Like, Skarsgård is a lot, like, you know, more, he's allowed to do more, because this one, you know, since it's a TV miniseries, there's, like, certain limitations that they have, but he's allowed to go more hardcore. It's definitely R-rated, much closer to the source material, but for what they were able to accomplish, I think for the most part they got the job done, at least in the first half of the 1990 miniseries. I mean, like I said, Tim Curry is fantastic the whole way through, and Bill Skarsgård's fantastic. They're both very different takes on the character, and, you know, I love them both. Like, Tim Curry is hilarious when he's going, wah-ha, 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 wah-ha. He's great, and, you know, Skarsgård's great too. Like, you know, he really did a great job there. But, yeah, so my history with the 1990 miniseries, I was in 8th grade, and I was hanging out with my friends. We were just there. We would often go and, like, you know, ride our bikes up and, like, go to, like, rent movies, like, because, you know, they didn't have digital streaming really back then, or do pay-per-view. We're like, okay, let's go to a Blockbuster Video. That's right, we went to Blockbuster Video, and we're like, let's go find, because for whatever reason, like, this movie just kind of, or not necessarily the movie, but the miniseries got really, like, burned into my brain. Like, I really just had, like, this, so many thoughts, because I heard so many things about it over the years, and I really, really wanted to watch this miniseries. It was really just kind of on my mind. I don't know what it was. I remember at my other friend's house, he had the book there, and I just saw it just kind of eyeballing me. It's like, for whatever reason, like, this weird obsession in my head, like, kind of like, was birthed for, like, this miniseries that I had never seen. I had always heard so many stories, like, oh, it's one of the scariest things ever made. It's so terrifying. The clown, Pennywise, blah, blah, blah. I heard so many things. And then finally, we picked up the thing, like, okay, here we go. We're going to finally watch this thing for the first time. It's 3 hours and 7 minutes. We put it on, and it turns out, like, it was literally just something just like this. I think this isn't, I mean, I went and purchased this, but it was one of those flip DVDs. And the issue was, we started on the second half of it, so we were kind of lost. And my friend had seen it, like, years prior. I was like, this does not, I'm like, why is this so weird? Like, this isn't making sense. So we kind of realized, oh, I mean, we're just like 8th grade. We're pretty young and dumb. We're like, oh, this is one of those flip discs. So we had to flip it, and we watched the whole thing. And I really do, like, admire this miniseries. Granted, it's definitely dated. It's low budget. They didn't have the means to really tell this story as good as it could. And it's, you know, they're very limited in terms of network TV. I think most people generally agree the first half with the kids is really solid, but then it gets to the second half with the adults, and quite frankly, the child actors, for the most part, are better than a lot of the adult actors. But I mean, some of the adult actors are fine. Like, John Ritter, of course, is, like, probably the best. John Ritter and Richard Thomas are both really solid. You also have the actor who plays Mike, I thought was quite good. But then you kind of have the guy who plays Richie, who looks like a wannabe Jeff Foxworthy. I mean, he's okay. Like, the other adult cast members, I think they do kind of an okay job, but The second half is just, it just seemed like a completely different creative team kind of took over. Like, it looks cheaper. When it comes to the It story, like, it's one of those storylines that doesn't necessarily need to be as long as it does. Like, it's like, the stuff with the kids is almost enough to tell the whole thing. Like, that's why It Chapter 1 works super well, is because you got the story with them just as kids. Like, it really kind of just works and kind of stands on its own. It didn't necessarily have to have the 27 year later, but that plot is, it's a large part of the novel, and they kind of incorporate it via flashbacks, like, every single time someone's like, flashback, flashback, flashback. And for adapting a 1,000-page novel, they managed to get, like, the core of it kind of down in, like, a span of 3 hours and 7 minutes. Like I said, I just rewatched this whole thing. It's a long sit. It definitely, like I said, there's parts in the second half that really do drag down. You can see the cheapness. The scares aren't really there. Even when I was younger, when I first watched this movie I don't want to call it a movie, it's a miniseries. I mean, you can pretty much call it like a movie. It feels kind of like a movie, a bit like a really, like a TV movie put together. But, when I first watched this, we weren't scared of Pennywise. In fact, we were laughing. And, I really enjoyed this. And for whatever reason, like I said, my obsession with it kind of grew and grew. And so I went and I purchased it, and I was like, oh, I was trying to show everybody this thing, got my friends to watch it, and now we all have, this love of it. And then we went to see, the It 2017 in theaters together. We were super excited. It just became my favorite Stephen King story. Now, the book has its issues, and, this movie, it doesn't fully adapt the book super accurately. I mean, there's some things in the book that obviously they'd never film. The child sewer scene, for instance, isn't there. But what I like about this thing, the kids are definitely likable. They're not. It's definitely it's set in the 1950s and then 1990. So it has kind of it's kind of like how everyone's on a bit of a nostalgia trip. Like our 1980s were their 1950s. So it definitely invokes sense of nostalgia, and I really like seeing this stuff with the kids too, because like I said, the child actors are really good. None of them are quite bad. I mean, the 2017 film really did a great job with the child actors. I mean, a lot of them are better in this one than this one, but it's not like they're really bad. Mike was done better in this one, I'll say. Bill is kind of a toss-up, because I think both of them were kind of neck and neck. Richie's it's cool to see Seth Green in this, but like I said, Richie really stands out in this one because he's, like I said, they're kind of limited a bit in the 1990 miniseries because it's on a shoestring budget. It's not this really big elaborate thing. It's just kind of you can't really fully adapt the novel faithfully. They just didn't have the money or the time to do so. And the ending to this thing is still even as much as I liked the first half and when it started the second half, and it just really kind of dragged because I just would have rather spent the time with the kids again. The final confrontation with it, when you see its true form, it's just a really badly done spider, and it is a really, really, really bad climax. I mean, the build up to it, it's good, and then when you finally see what this thing is, it's just some weird giant spider, and the effects look terrible. There's some neat practical effects, but it just felt cheap, it just felt crappy. Even when Eddie dies, it's he's not even, it looks like he just got a hug. It just, really, he's dead there. It just, God, man, this thing, it just looked like they cut the budget completely in half, and it felt like some cheap movie. I was watching, I'm like, oh man, it's really good in the first half with the kids, and then the second half with the adults. Everybody says, the second half of the It storyline is the hardest to nail. No matter, because everybody likes the stuff with the kids, and then we get to the stuff with the adults, it's man, this is just, it's a lot of Stephen King stories, they start out really strong, but sometimes end kind of lackluster, and that's kind of the case with It a bit. The first portion with the kids is always really strong. It's really strong, it works well because, they're dealing with childhood fears and such, but the stuff with the adults, it almost never clicks quite as well as the first half. I mean, maybe It Chapter 2 will do that, but even when I was reading the book, I'm just yeah, I really just like seeing this stuff from the kids' perspective. I mean, it takes me back to when I was younger, and I like the bond that the young cast has in this film. They're all really nice kids. They're solid actors. Again, they're kind of limited in terms of what they can say, but they all still feel like a real cohesive unit of kids. They all they're all pretty good. And like I said before, Tim Curry is the reason to watch this thing. He's freaking hilarious. I mean, every time he just pops up on screen, you can't take your eyes off him. He's truly mesmerizing in the role, and I really wish there was more of him in this thing, because once Tim Curry is kind of taken out of the picture, it's like you get to the thing with the spider, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of lacking. Like, I wish they would have fought just an actual Tim Curry. That would have been way cooler. Which is one of the strengths of the 2017 film that I really appreciate. Like, you get a lot of Skarsgård in there. I mean, I wish there was a bit more of him, but because he's so good in what he's doing. But the kids actually have like a fight with him, and they're not so limited by their budget when they do that. So like Skarsgård and Curry, I think they're both great. I think Tim Curry's definitely funnier, but Skarsgård's definitely like got that creepier clown vibe down. But one of the things that makes Tim Curry's Pennywise work more than like say Skarsgård's does is like he's a clown. You definitely get he's better at being the clown, and he's better at being the shapeshifter and like trying to be more like terrifying, and like you feel the glitches and stuff with Pennywise. And obviously he's allowed to dive into it more because it's it's an R rating and they're not so held back by their budget. But one of the things that with Tim Curry is like you can actually see him like luring kids. Like he just seems like, oh look, I'm just a happy-go-lucky normal clown. You look at this thing, you see how scary he looks. You're like, okay, I'm gone. No, but this one you actually can buy him like kind of luring children before it consumes them. And obviously we didn't get to see that happen, but this one we sure as hell did. So the 1990s miniseries. It is definitely dated. Trying to watch it all in one sitting, it definitely drags. But I know a lot of people have nostalgia for it, and I have some nostalgia for it too. I've been watching this thing for quite a long time. Even when I first saw it, like I just kept getting a lot more people to watch it. They became fans of it. But even now, we generally just didn't like the second half as much. Like, man, I like it when they're kids, because it's like I could relate to that. I could really relate to the kid portion. I could not relate to the adult portion as much. And there are some good actors. Like I said, Richard Thomas is good as Bill Denbrough. John Ritter is really good as Ben. The guy who plays Mike, I'm not sure the actor's name, but he's pretty solid. There's a neat director's commentary on here. I don't think I want to listen to the whole thing, but it's got Richard Thomas, Tim Reed. I think was it Tim Reed? Yeah, it was Tim Reed and Dennis Christopher. I can't remember all their names in there. But yeah, several of the actors are in there doing their thing. One thing that the miniseries did do is they brought in Bev's like abusive fiance or whatever his name was, Tom, like her boyfriend Tom. In the book he comes back, but in the miniseries he doesn't play a factor into it at all. He's kind of just like gets kind of knocked out. I guess maybe for time constraints they didn't have the time to really flesh that out. But he just kind of just comes and goes, and I was kind of hoping that there would be more to do with him in the miniseries, but they don't necessarily do quite that. But so the miniseries, you just kind of take it for what it's worth. I still enjoy it. Now that the 2017 one's come out, it definitely is the superior version to this, but there are elements of this thing that I really do like. Like I said, Tim Curry is really, really good. A lot of the child actors are solid. And it does a fine job of like kind of condensing the story down to like just 3 hours. It is a very long book. I mean, I've read the damn thing. Like, I read it once. It's well over 1,000 pages, and it's absolutely just insane trying to get through that whole entire book. Like, even if you put on an audiobook, it's like, God, I've been listening to this thing for like hundreds of hours, and it's just like, I'm never going to get done. That's kind of the vibe you get at that. But like this is still definitely a solid miniseries, but it definitely stumbles in the second half, and there's just no real scares to it. But Tim Curry is really good. And the musical score. The musical score, I will say, is very memorable. I've listened to the whole soundtrack. I think the soundtrack for this is really, really good. It's like do 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 do. Soundtrack is great. Effects don't hold up well at all. Tim Curry holds up just fine. The best scene is where he's just being an asshole to Richie when he's in the library. He's just like, waha. I mean, Tim Curry is great. Tim Curry is a fucking legend. So, I think I've rambled on. 14 minutes, 15 minutes. I've talked about this thing enough. But, Yeah, like I said, it's directed. It's a TV film or miniseries. I keep wanting to say film, but it's just a miniseries. Yeah, it's a TV miniseries. It it is definitely dated, but it still is fun. It still has some enjoyable qualities to it. Like I said, Tim Curry, the child actors, some of the adult cast. The guy, like I said, some of them just are okay, but the child actors were just much stronger. And but it did do something important. It kind of introduced a lot of the world to this storyline, and it gave a lot of people nightmares from clowns for years to come. It made a horror icon out of Pennywise, and that's kind of the reason this thing was as big as it was because of this miniseries. This miniseries, whether you like it as much as the 2017 film or not, it did help lay the groundwork for this future adaptation. And like I said, this one's definitely better than this, but I still have a soft spot for this one. And I say it's at least worth checking out at least once. And mostly for Tim Curry, because Tim Curry, let's face it, is the main reason to watch this thing. So I really kind of wish Tim Curry was put in an adaptation where he was allowed to go a lot crazier. There's no turtle Maturin or anything like that. I guess he's supposed to be in Chapter 2. Like, it gets so crazy in the book how they defeat it, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it Chapter 2. I'm going to go ahead and rewatch this one tomorrow night, but yeah, it 1990, it holds a soft spot in my heart. It's nowhere near as good as it's not as good as the 2017 film. It definitely is dated, has its, limitations due to budget and that, and it definitely stumbles a lot in the second half. But there's enough to carry you through, and after you watch it, you probably want to go back and rewatch at least the first part with the kids. So, yep, those are my thoughts on the 1990 version of Stephen King's It, the miniseries. Love Tim Curry, child actors, like I said, great score. It's fine. It's definitely fine. It's dated, but it's got its charm to it. So, what are your thoughts on the 1990 Stephen King's miniseries for It? Do you like this one? Do you dislike this one? Let me know in the comment section down below. We'll talk about it some more. Hit that bell for notifications. Subscribe to this for more videos. And, yeah, that's all I really kind of have to say at this point. Go check out It Chapter 2. It's coming out on Thursday. So far, I heard the response is pretty solid overall. They did a good job concluding the story. Maybe not as much as the first half, which is I would kind of expect that. But I'm really hoping to be surprised by Chapter 2. I hope it does. I hope it's better than the first one, because there are some ways, like even upon rewatching the 2017 film, I've noticed like it's not as good as when I first saw it in theaters, but I definitely still like it. But I really hope this It Chapter 2 delivers something truly spectacular and really ends the story on a high note. That's at least my hope. So, yep, let me know in the comments below what you thought of the 1990 miniseries and what your thoughts were on It 2017. We'll chat about this thing some more. Thank you so much for watching. I'm JT Userborn, and I will see you all on Thursday when oh, actually, I'm recording. That's right. I'm recording this on Tuesday, and I'm uploading this on Wednesday. So I will see you tomorrow when I go ahead and do my After the Movie on It Chapter 2. I got IMAX tickets. I'm all set. I'm all ready to go. I'm going to watch Pennywise do his thing. I miss Pennywise. I mean, remember 2017? Pennywise took over. Now it seems like after this we're going to have Joker taking over again. Boy, Warner Brothers has a thing for clowns, don't they? They got Pennywise this week, and then next month they got the Joker, and those are going to be their two biggest movies of the year. It's kind of crazy to think about, but Warner Brothers loves their clowns. And then you have Harley Quinn next year in her movie. So, yeah, I'm noticing a pattern. They really have a thing for killer clowns. So, speaking of killer clowns, let's remake Killer Clowns from Outer Space or get a sequel to that. That'd be kind of fun. But, yeah. It's 1990. It's a thing. So, I rambled on long enough. I'll see you all next time. It Chapter 2. Here we go. Peace out. Waha! 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 God, I can't even do it. Like, Tim Curry is just, he's a legend. He's a fucking legend. So, yeah. Alright, take care now. Bye-bye then. I'll see you next time.